Not off the top of my head right now.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're
Sure.
quite welcome. Look at that snow come down.
Is it snowing there?
Snowing pretty heavily, actually.
Do you prefer the snow? In the winter, at least.
Well, living is more comfortable in the winter, I find,
Yeah.
because I've got some issues with extra insulation that many people don't have.
Helps.
So, Jonathan, you're running OBS? Mr. Williams?
No, for some reason it does that when it says that like I have a camera on, it just defaults to that.
So at one time you had OBS installed.
Oh, I do have it installed, but I am not currently running it. No, it just does
Right,
that for some reason.
Yeah, so what's happening there is that Zoom was defaulting to your OBS virtual camera, which wasn't online, so you got that placeholder. So
Thank you.
Yeah, OBS is pretty cool. I used it all of last semester, and then I realized it was causing latency that was interfering with audio sync, and I just didn't want to deal with it anymore.
Were you VTubing during class?
Me or Jonathan?
No, you.
No, I wasn't, because somebody as old as I am, we really haven't got a clue. But I did use OBS to do all sorts of, I've got this cool streamer. Let's see, I can't actually. Now I dropped it. I've got a stream deck, so I can, just push a button and switch cameras. At one point, I had 4 cameras set up. I thought that would help my teaching, and turns out it didn't. So finally, I just gave up on OBS. But Stream Deck's cool. Gave me something to buy. All right, everybody. I am so happy to see you here. It is a gorgeous sunny day outside, and I hope you get a chance to enjoy it. If my understanding is correct, it's supposed to be like negative temperatures this weekend. So if you're going to go outside, be careful. Okay. So as we always do, let us begin with review and book questions and project questions. So lay your questions on me.
Could we get like a quick refresher on what we did on Tuesday? Because it's sort of foggy in my memory right now.
Okay, darn, what you're looking at is where Tuesday's agenda was that I crossed out. So let's see if I can reconstruct it from memory. This is foggy for you, it's foggy for me too. So we did, whoops. Named parameters, and we did default parameters. And we did more information about dict and more information about print. What else did we do?
We went over like how to download files and upload them to REPL.
Okay, so getting data file into REPL. All right. Now we must have done other things. Do you remember what you're confused about, Santana?
It had to do a lot with like the parts where we were opening the files, and if I remember correctly, we were trying to randomize a certain word or sentence in it for like,
Oh, we were picking a word of the day, so to speak.
yeah, that part.
Okay, so we did do a little bit with files. And also there was the choosing a line at random. Okay. Well, we are going to go over more about dicts today. We are going to go over more about files. And we're going to do more information about printing. So why don't I do, and you can follow along with me, why don't I do this example? Maybe that'll just help you with that understand. That's the one that is fuzzy. Santana?
Sorry, my dog was being a bit of a butt. What was that last part?
Choosing a line at random, that's the one that was confusing?
Yeah, that part.
Okay, so let's flip over to Replit. Is that Replit? Is that Replit? Is that no, none of these are Replit. Okay. Okay, good. Okay. And so does everyone have a data file? In this case, Shelly.txt. Okay, is there, I should ask the opposite. Does anyone want to go over how to get the file? Just say yes, if you need that.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Okie dokie. So I'll start out by deleting this. And that will simulate the position that you're in right now. So going to, let's say Schoology, click on Projects, P3. And here's the link to P3. And that takes you to GitHub, where you'll find the specification in a file called readme.md. Now at the bottom of this file is a link to download the data file. So I click and it downloads and it's done. We'll go to Replit, use the 3 vertical dots, and the first item is upload a file. And go to your downloads, and there's Shelly, and choose for upload. And now it's there. It's available to you in Replit. Okay, so the goal here is to read all lines from the file and choose one at random to print out. Okay, that's my goal. We're going to look at different ways of doing this today. But here's the way that we learned the other day. We said a file, a variable, call it whatever you want, but how about input file equals open and give a string with the name of the file. Now, notice, folks, I have not discussed at all yet what happens if Python can't open the file. So I'd like to demonstrate that for you, okay? So So there's a file that doesn't exist. And I'll run this program and see what happens. An error. Okay, so I have not shown you yet how to deal with this, but we will learn that in the future. So for now, let's assume you can always correctly open the file that you're trying to. Okay, in case you were interested, what happens if you can't open the file? Okay, so the file is open. And I'm going to read the entire file at once into a list. And then I'm going to import from random, import choice. And then I'm going to print a line chosen at random. And I'll put in choice lines. Let's run that. Wait, now, that's how we all feel sometimes. But of course, in this particular file, all of the lines are each only one word. That's why only one word was printed. Okay? And we should get a different one. This is like describing how you feel when taking this class. You're despondent, you need help. And in order to feel fulfilled, you need some custom code. That's as far as the joke goes. Okay, Santana, does that help?
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right, happy to entertain more review questions. Okay, questions? Come on, I know you got some. Eric, question? You have no questions, Eric?
No, I'm okay.
Really? Seriously? Like you're not at all interested in how my day's been?
How is your day?
Oh, it's been pretty good. And thank you for the question.
What's the background from?
Oh, that is, well, let me see. Does anybody else know?
Is it James Cameron Avatar?
Yeah, that is the moon Pandora. And yeah, so my software was heavily used in Avatar. My software is used in every film and TV program. So, okay. But that was a good question. Thank you. Anybody else have questions? Actually, if you look at this picture, it actually does, it also is reminiscent of, I believe is H.R. Geiger, who had an occupation called futurist, whatever that means. And so he designed Alien, and he designed the cover of the band called Yes. He did their album covers. But this is not H.R. Geiger, it's somebody else. So there's no questions about the projects, no questions from the book, and no questions from a review. I find that hard to believe.
I guess like thinking about it, I do kind of have a question.
Awesome. What is it?
Are there any memory concerns when it comes to like reading a file into a variable rather than just using like with open like as F, or is it kind of just the same to the?
You know what?
selector?
Your question, I'll repeat it back to make sure I understood it. Do we need to be concerned about memory? Because doing something like line 5, if the file's really big, it's going to use up a lot of memory. And the answer is, It depends. What does it depend upon? Well, for one thing, I know that this is an in-class exercise, so I'm not going to be all worked up about thinking about memory. Second answer is modern computers running modern operating systems can have a huge amount of memory. So the machine that I'm on right now is 32 gigabytes of main memory. But not only is the physical memory in your computer available to you, but the amount of memory that you can actually access is far larger than the amount of memory you actually have. And I'll put a word here that is called virtual memory. And what that means is your programs can use more memory than you actually have. So the bottom line is, if you are writing mission critical code, for example, code that runs a medical instrument, code that runs an airplane, then your set of requirements and how careful you have to be is much, much more highly elevated. So your original question is, do I need to be concerned? Right now, for the purposes of this class, I don't need to be concerned. But in different circumstances, I might be. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. And I enjoyed the experience. All right, anybody have other questions?
I have one, but it's a bit weird. How would using, or could you use images in like this sort of coding at this point, or would it be something else entirely?
You remember when I said that Python is so wonderful because it has so much that's pre-written for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Python's wonderful because there's so much pre-written for you. There are dozens and dozens of packages for working with pictures. Okay, so we will actually use one of them soon, especially since you asked the question. Do you have an interest in working with pictures?
More so like with the D&D generator thing that we did a little bit back, I wanted to incorporate it a bit more with like face shapes, so that like whenever I did like a randomized thing, it would also upload a random face shape image for like a character. Because whenever I DM, like I have to think of characters on the fly, and sometimes a part of it is like describing them a lot, which can be annoying when you're like me and you don't remember stuff. So I thought like if I found a way to incorporate like different images of face shapes, I could use those as like a base for when I'm doing that sort of thing. So like I put in like a random name, and then like it has the list of all the stats. I've added a bit more like hair color and like height and like body shape so far. And one of the things is if I incorporate images, I think I can make it easier for like just general usage of for my own like memory's sake.
Okay, yes, you can do that. I will just give you a quick tease. There's a package for reading folders, directories. Okay, so a folder and directory being the same thing. So you would use that package to locate all your pictures. Then the picture names, watch what I'm doing here. The picture names, the files, get read just like a file into a list. And then which picture shall you use? Choice of the pictures, and then use the an imaging package to load that file. And there you are. So we'll see how to do, we're not going to do this exactly, but we'll see how to work with pictures very soon.
All right,
Okay.
sweet. Thank you for that.
You're quite welcome. Does anybody else have questions for review, a problem from the book, or a question about your project? Okay, then let's take a look at what I'd like to do today. So let's learn a little bit more about sets. Now, we did some book problems about sets, and I wasn't really satisfied with how they were doing things. So I'd like to show you a different way of doing set operations. Once again, let's define what a set is. And I'll start by drawing a green smudge. I'll start by talking about what a dictionary is. A dictionary is keys mapped to values, as compared to a set, which is just keys, no values. So a set can remember only, it stores only whether or not something is in it. Whereas a dictionary stores whether or not something is in it, and if it is in it, some value associated with the key. All right, so let's take a look at REPL again, and you can follow along with me. And I'm going to use the console rather than the shell. So you can create an empty set. Well, we can create a set that has something in it like this. And we can ask, what is the type of S? What is S? S is a set. So what's the value of S? It's a set. And I say it's a set because it's got keys, but no values, which means it's not a dict, and it's surrounded by parentheses, braces. But here's a gotcha. I want to create an empty set. No problem, you say. Well, let's do a type of S. Ah, that's an empty dict. So to create an empty set, you do it like this. Okay, so use the set. It's called a constructor, but you can forget about that word. And now S is truly a set. You can add something to a set using s.add. And let's add 23. So what's in the set? The value 23. If you remember, we can create an empty list. The type of the list, of the type of L, is a list. And we can add something by saying L.append. So print it out. So it would have been nice if all of these different containers, like sets and lists and dictionaries, tuples, all use the same words to do the same thing. Unfortunately, different parts of the language were written by different people. So everybody's got their own idea of what makes sense. So sorry for that, but we'll just have to deal with it. Okay, so let's try the some set operations. Here's a set with 1, 2, and 3 in it. And here's another set with 2, 3, and 4. Now the union, if you recall, we did something like S dot union with T and we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice, important thing here, notice there's 2 2s, but in the union, only 1. There are 2 3s, in the union, only 1. That's because a set, for any given key, there's at most 1. Okay? All right. That gives me an idea. Suppose we have a list that's 1, 2, 2, 4, 3, 3, 3, 3. And what you wanted was to eliminate all the duplicates. You could just wrap it in a set. And that eliminated the duplicates for us. But getting back to the union of S and T, here's another way of doing it, which is, I think, a lot more, makes a lot more sense. The union of S and T is just S and then a character that we call the pipe symbol. It is the shift of the key that's above your return or enter key, a vertical bar. So there's a union, S pipe T. So how about the intersection of the two sets, S and T? So that set is the items that are in both S and T. Okay, how about the items that are in S but not T? Minus. Okay, how about the items that are in T but not S? Okay, now how about S hat or caret T? Those are this is the items that are in one or the other, but not both. Okay, does anybody have any questions? So that's more information about sets. Okay. So now I would, if there are no questions, I'd like to give you some more information about print. So for this, I think I'll use a program. So let's say, okay, so what would this do? Print, we've seen how to do this. Let's use some string formatting. And by the way, it's very important that you understand that string formatting is not only just for print. String formatting can be used anytime you want to assemble a string in a specific format. To emphasize that, instead of using print directly, I'll assign the output to a variable, and I'll do formatting without the print. And to use format, you would have to leave over templates or placeholders. And now I'll print it. I'll print out S. Okay, let's run this program. Let me see what happens when I hit run. Okay, good. I can do it that way. So there's 10 and 99. So ordinarily, without doing anything special, the first placeholder gets filled in with the first variable, being the first argument. The second placeholder gets the value of the second argument. Now, I wonder what would happen if we had two placeholders, but only one argument. Let's see what happens there. Ah, boom. Okay, so as many placeholders as you have to have arguments. For now, that's what you know by now. What about the other choice? If I had A and B, two arguments, but only one placeholder? No problem. Okay. So that was review. A new knowledge is the following. Let's put in a 1 in there and a 0 in here. And those are inside the braces of the placeholders. What do you think that's going to print?
$9.99
900.
and then 100.
Exactly. Right, so you can switch up the order using the placeholders rather than having to change all the parameters. And in fact, you could repeat them without having to update your parameters. Hello, doggy. Hello, second doggy. Where's third doggy? See, it's too bad you can't see only if I get to pick her up. So the puppy's now what, 5 months old? Getting big. Okay, I'm back. That was fun. If you go to reach down for her, she's cute. You reach down for her to pick her up, and rather than just stay there to be picked up, she'll literally flip on her back and put her legs like this, and supposed to rub her belly. You know, if there's a Reddit just for dog bellies, there's a subreddit just for. That's so weird. There's a subreddit for everything. There's a subreddit for people who are convinced that all birds are robots spying on people. Seriously. So, okay, so keep going. So you can specify the position, and let's factor in some of the other things that we know about formatting. So here's 1 colon, and let's put that in 10 spaces. And that's formatted such that it's right justified. And here's how it would be left justified, using the less than like an arrow. And here's a cool one. I've got 10 spaces to work with, and I'd like the output to be centered in 10 spaces. So notice that not only can you repeatedly use one of the output parameters, but you can repeatedly use them and give them separate and different formatting. Anybody have any questions? Okay, if there are no questions, let's revisit dictionaries, learn some more about dictionaries. So here is a dictionary, and I'll put some values in. Let's see, so Harry met Sally, and Elizabeth met Philip. And one more. How about, who's your favorite power couple? Anybody?
Me and some Cheez-Its.
Oh, say that again?
Me and some Cheez-Its.
Okay, I have no, I don't know what that means. Can you spell it for me, or are you leading me down a hole?
I was making a joke about how I'm in love with Cheez-Its.
Oh, okay. I'll go with that. Okay. So there's dictionary. Let's print the dictionary, just see what it's got. Okay, so the keys here are Harry, Elizabeth, and Cheez-Its. Okay, the values are Sally, Philip, and happiness. So how, for example, might you enumerate this dictionary? You might do it like this. For key in D, print the key is, and the key, and the value is, and then look up in the dictionary the key. Okay? So this for loop is going to iterate over the keys. Now notice the HEC, the dictionary is not sorting the keys. The dictionary is listing the keys in the order in which they were added. So my question to you is, wouldn't it be nice to be able to enumerate in a sorted order? Well, to do that, you can do that, obviously, and to do that, you would have to sort the keys. So we've seen sorted once before. And let's introduce this function available in dictionary. So sort only the keys. And now it's a sorted list, a sorted printout. And what would it, if you wanted to have it in reverse alphabetical order? And another one, okay. Whoops, reversed. Ah, there we go, reversed. Okay. So some other things I'd like to add about dictionaries is if you wanted to just know the values, d dot values. And that is also a function. And that returns, it's not quite a list though. If you wanted that to be a list, then you'd have to turn it into a list. Now it's an ordinary list. One last item. We've learned about enumerate, right? So enumerate is used in a for loop. So we had a list. We could enumerate those and get two values, both the position and the value. So position and the value in enumerate L, print position. Okay, and val Let's see what that does. So at position 0, you find the letter A. At position 1, you find the letter B. Now that's with lists. With the oldest dog knows I have dog cookies in this room, and she just won't leave my side. She's just sitting there staring at me. Okay, so there is something like this for dictionaries. Let me change this to key and value. And instead of enumerate, I will use the dictionary name dot items. And so that's a value, and that's value. And this is key and key. Okay, so items returns two values. I'm sorry, I'm using the word values over again, but it returns two parameters, one being the key, the other being the value. That is mapped from that key. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. With no questions, I'm going to ask you to write a program. And let me just paste in the description of the program I'd like you to do. Okay. Where? There it is. Okay. And I'm coming right back to you. Here I come, coming back. And show the screen. So get ready to do an exercise. Okay, I want you to write a program that stores the unique words found in Shelley.txt. And this is similar to project 3. So what we're doing right now is an exercise in class that is going to help give you confidence in succeeding in doing project 3. So what we're doing now is something like project 3, but not exactly project 3. It's similar, but in project 3, we count the number of times each word is read. Okay. Now, here, we're recording only whether or not a word was seen. So if it's seen 0 times, it won't be in our data structure. If it's seen 1,000 times, it'll appear once. Does that sound like a set? Okay, I see some heads. So P3 uses a dictionary where the keys are words and the values are the count of the number of times that word appears. This program is going to use a set. At the end of your code, just print out the number of unique words. So also like project 3, this program is fundamentally in 2 phases. There's phase 1, data gathering, and then phase 2, processing. So in project 3, the data gathering is to open the file and construct the dictionary where the key is each word, and the value for that key is the number of times that that word appears in the file. Then the processing step in project 3 is a loop waiting for the user to enter quit. And if the word is not quit, it does a lookup into the dictionary and finds the key and tells you how many times the word was printed. So in this program, we'll have data gathering step, which is to read the file and put it into a set. And step 2, the processing step, is just to print the number of unique words. Okay? Go to it. Feel free to talk out loud. Feel free to ask questions, and feel free to collaborate with other people in the class. Or in the old days, we might say, feel free to work with the person sitting next to you. So go ahead, work with the person sitting next to you. Big wet fluffy flakes coming down, lots of snow. It's not accumulating yet. I'm not sure if I forgot to ask you or not. Is there anyone who needs to see getting the file again? Notice I've got the file. Does everyone have this? Because if you don't, I'll be happy to show you how to get it. Okay.
What's the thing you use to get the file into the program?
Okay, good. So I'm going to start by deleting this. And I'll repeat the steps. So go to the specification for the project, starting with Schoology. So starting with Schoology, go to Projects and find P3 and click on the link for the specification. Go to the very bottom and it says how to get the words file. So click on this link. It will cause the file to be downloaded to your computer. Then go to Replit, which I think I just closed. Good for me. Yeah, I did. Okay, that was great. Thank you, Zoom, for covering up all the top part of my screen. Replit. That is not what I wanted. I wanted to go here. Okay. So here are the 3 vertical dots. And the first item is upload file. And then I go to my downloads, which this is the Mac, so you can't see it. I go to my downloads and I find the file. I click on it, choose for upload, and there it is. Okay, and that's the program you're trying to write.
But like, once you have it, what's the thing that you like for like random? You do like import random. What do you do for the file?
Okay, for working with files, you're going to use open. You'll also use close, maybe. And then there's a lot of methods available for working with files, like read and read line and read lines. And there's also write and write line, et cetera, et cetera. But you don't have to use this basic IO, input output, you don't have to import anything. Does that answer the question?
Then how does it know where to look for the words?
You know, that's actually a very sophisticated question. And the short answer is, if you look in the shell, and I do a listing of the files, you notice that the file that I'm interested in opening is in this directory called in class. So in the open, if you simply use the letters in the string, Shelly.txt, it will look in the current folder for Shelly.txt. And yes, I do understand that I misspelled Shelly. Now, there are ways of finding files that are not in the same folder, and we will get to that towards the end of the course. She's still looking at me. That hurt. Okay, how are you doing? Is anybody making progress? So how would I create an empty set?
You can assign a variable to just an empty set without any values in it. So just s equals with 2 parenthesis markers.
Like that?
Yeah.
This is actually, the empty set like this is actually not going to be a set. It's going to be a dictionary. So you can use this style to initialize a non-empty set. That's a set. But the empty set is going to be, you remember here, so S equals an empty set, or so you thought it was. So what is the type of S? Dictionary. So in order to get an empty set, you'd have to say this. So now if we look at the type, that's truly a set.
Okay, so but in the project we're going to be using a dictionary instead of a set, right?
Correct. So for today's exercise, you need this. But for your project, you would do what Alvin said. I think it was Alvin. Okay, so there's our empty set. Now, let's open the file. How do you do that? There's several ways of opening the file. I believe Eric mentioned using with. We haven't looked at that. We haven't learned that way yet. So let's do it the way that we've learned, which is to set a variable equal to the result of open. Once again, I have not shown you how to handle opening files that don't exist. So I'm assuming that this file will open. Okay, now, how about a loop to read each line individually? You could read them all at once, but that would use up a lot of memory, which I believe Eric also asked about. I think it was Eric. Okay, so let's read it one line at a time. So you could say for line in the file. That is so natural. That's going to be a loop until that's going to read each line individually until the file has been entirely read. Now, what should we do with that? Well, we've written a little. Let's test a little. So let's run this. Oh, ouch. You hit Control C. Okay. Hey, we got that problem again where there are two new lines. So do you remember how to strip out the new line in each line? I'll leave that there. How would you do it?
Do you use is it bracket colon -1?
Yeah, that's called slicing. Yep. So line, and we're going to slice it from the beginning. That's why the left-hand side of the colon is empty, up until the last one before the last character. So now let's do it. Run. Good. We got rid of the new lines. Now, there's one more thing I'd like you to take care of for me, please. Here's a word, the. And also, there are the beginnings of sentences that are the word the, but it's capitalized. Now, the way we have it coded right now, THE, all lowercase, would be counted separately from capital THE. And I'd like to unify those, just like Project 3 calls for. So do you remember how to squash everything to lowercase? Anybody?
Dot lower.
Exactly. All right, so I note that there's some capital letters here. I wrote a little, let me test a little. And Control C. No more capital letters. Oh, that's interesting. It looks like there's a typo in the transcription. I would imagine that would be Sophie, not Safie. Okay, that's the way it goes. Okay, good. Now all that's left is to put it, the line into the set. How do we do that?
Would it be s dot add?
Yes. Okay, s dot add of line. And this completes phase one. We collected all the data and built our data structure. So let's be good campers and close the file. And now phase two. Okay, so how can I do that?
Could you do the length of the set?
Bingo. Okay, so print. The file contained LENS, length of the set, unique words. Okay, I guess I have to scroll. Go ahead, scroll to the bottom. There. Let me, there. Okay. Let's take stock of what we did. And I'll try to point out how it's similar or different from project 3. For one thing, line 12, I'm creating an empty set, whereas in project 3, you'll be creating an empty dictionary. So similar to project 3, you want to open the file and read its entire contents. In this case, one line at a time, so that you can strip out new lines and squash the characters down to lowercase. Now, where project 3 is a lot more complicated is here. And why? Anybody? Intuition? Yeah, let's try a little tiny experiment over here in the console. So I'll tell you what, D is a dictionary, and I'll pre-populate it with what's, oh goodness, I can't remember. I'm having an adult moment here. Was trying to think of the name of the character who is bitten by Dracula. No, actually, this is Frankenstein. So what am I talking about? So how about Igor? And I've so far found it 23 times. So there's my dictionary. The key is Igor and the value is 23. So suppose I found Igor again. So I would just say Igor, increment it by 1. Whoops, what did I do wrong? I didn't use
Wasn't it supposed to be a colon, not a comma?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Haha. Ah, you got me there. You saved me. So colon, right. You saved me. Thank you. Good. So the key is Igor and the value is 23. And now I found Igor again, and I'm going to increment it. And now you see that it's incremented. Okay, so that makes project 3 a little bit more complicated, but wait, there's more. Let me start over with an empty dictionary. And now I'm just going to do something I just did. I found Igor. I want to add 1 to it. Can't. The reason is that Igor isn't already one of the keys in the dictionary. The dictionary is empty. And in order to do this, it's in order to do the increment that I have just above, it's really the way I wrote it there. You can see it is expands to this. Okay, and that's why it fails, because the Igor is on the right-hand side of the equal sign. That's a lookup. We're looking up the key Igor, and it's not there. That's why we get the key error. So in project 3, you need to test first. So if Igor is not in B, then you have to explicitly add it. And we'll set its count to 0. You can make the argument that you can set it to 1, but I'm going to set it to 0 so that all the time, the very next line would be an increment. I'll look up in an increment. Now that works. Okay. So all of what I've just discussed will go here. Then you can close the file. That would be the same. And then down here, this would be a loop in P3 asking for a word to look up. Tell the user if the word was not found, or tell the user how many times the word was found. Okay, so that would, instead of the line 27 print, you would be doing this in phase 2 of the program that you're writing for P3. Does anybody have any questions about this and about project 3? Okay, then. Well, it's so beautiful, and I'm sure you want to be outside playing in the snow, going sledding, having snowball fights. So it's okay if you want to end class early. Okay? Tonight is Thursday night, and that means there's a computer science barbecue. I will be available through Discord in the computer science barbecue server from 7 to 9 p.m. And I'm also available to you outside of those hours over the weekend if you want to send an email for an email answer. And I'm also willing to do, one-on-one Zoom with you over the weekend. Okay? Okay, then. Everybody have a wonderful weekend.
Everybody have a great one. And also happy birthday, Becca.
Thanks, Professor.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor.
Thank you. Bye-bye.